I'm guessing many of you out there recognize this guy. Yep, if you're like me and grew up on a steady diet of Looney Tunes, you'll recognize that as the Tasmanian Devil. And what was weird about the Tasmanian Devil was whenever he moved around, he was a crazy thing, motion everywhere. Well, sometimes we dive instructors see Tasmanian Devils under the water. Check this out. Yep, unfortunately, new student divers sometimes can look like Tasmanian Devils under the water. But scarily enough, even some certified divers can look like this underwater. So in this episode, we're going to break down exactly what is going on with that diver, analyze all that craziness, and fix it. Welcome to Everything Scuba. Hey guys, welcome to Everything Scuba. I am Lyell. So my joke about the Tasmanian Devil there is kind of funny, but it's also kind of not funny. You don't want to be the diver that has that kind of form underwater. You don't want to be the buddy of that diver either. I wish I could tell you that I've never seen that before, that I just made that up underwater. Unfortunately, it is an all too common event during training, and again, even some certified divers that we run into underwater. It is not what I want to see from my students, even as they begin to learn how to dive. We're going to put some principles in place that are going to give them some decent form and make them good, safe divers from the get-go. In this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to break down piece by piece what is going on with that diver. Let's break this down in slow motion and take a look at what is happening. First, the most obvious things, the crazy leg kicking thing that's going on and all of the arm swimming movements. Let's look at those one at a time. Freeze frame it here. Look at the position of the ankle and the legs as the diver is diving. As you can see here, he's got legs that are going like mad. This guy looks like he's riding a bicycle, and in fact, that's what we call it, bicycle kicking. It is an inefficient way to move through the water. Also because of the leg position with the extreme bending of the knees, the right angled ankles. Also, if you look at the fins, it bends forwards and backwards, and it's almost like he's trying to stomp his way through the water. We're not going to efficiently use our fins this way. The arm movements. Not an uncommon thing for us to see in new student divers. We're very much used to swimming on the surface of the water. Diving is not swimming. And so using arm movements while diving is actually counterproductive to efficiently moving through the water, and also can destabilize you in a way that ruins your good diving form. The other thing I think of when I see divers who are constantly moving arms or legs is poor buoyancy. Divers who constantly use their arms to try and keep their body up, or they feel like they have to keep kicking all the time, otherwise if they stop moving, they'll sink. And if that happens, they have poor buoyancy and have inefficient diving form. Next, let's look at the angle of this diver's body in the water. So chest up, feet down. Again, a very inefficient way to move through the water. We're presenting a lot of mass to the water to try and propel ourselves through it. Think about fish. I always tell my students, do fish swim like this or like this? We want to be nice and horizontal as a diver. Next, I'm going to speed the film back up again. This is only a 10-second clip of this diver. Count how many breaths this diver has during those 10 seconds. Yep, 5 breaths in 10 seconds. That's a lot. So this diver is going to consume his air in a very rapid fashion. So increasing his sac rate, increasing his air consumption, an inefficient way to dive. So why break all of this down? Well, in that short 10-second clip, we can break this down into the general basic principles that a diver should have, especially when they start to learn how to dive, to become a good diver with good form. So why are we picking on new divers? Well, it's hard to break old habits. If you get into a certain way of doing things, sometimes it's very hard to break that habit. So the best way to deal with this is to work with an instructor who's going to give you the base principles, the basic fundamentals of what it takes to be a good diver and become an efficient diver. So from this 10-second clip, what are the basic principles that we see are missing? Number 1, weighting. Number 2, trim. Number 3, buoyancy. Number 4, propulsion. And number 5, breathing and breath control. Let's look at those principles a little closer. First, weighting. What is the appropriate amount of weight based on the environment that you are diving and the gear that you're wearing or taking with you? How do we know how much weight is appropriate for that diver? Number 2, the trim position of that diver. This diver was chest up, feet down. As divers, we want to achieve that nice horizontal position. So that is a factor of how we disperse that weight around us and the techniques that we use to achieve that nice horizontal trim position comfortably and be able to maintain it throughout our entire dive to dive efficiently. Number 3, buoyancy. As divers, we need to master all 3 phases of buoyancy: positive buoyancy, negative buoyancy, and the one that most divers struggle most with is neutral buoyancy. The ability to place yourself anywhere in the water column at will during your dive. Number 4, propulsion. The ability to efficiently move yourself through the water with as little effort as possible. And what do I do with my arms, some students might ask me. Well, Michael Phelps, I don't know if he's a scuba diver or not, but you're not Michael Phelps underwater. And number 5, breath control and breathing rates. Breath control is obviously a large part of your buoyancy control, so it falls into that category also. But breathing rates, how do we breathe underwater during a dive in a way that will decrease our surface air consumption rate and make us much more efficient divers, and even more importantly, give us more time underwater? So amazing that we can get all of that from a 10-second clip of a Tasmanian Devil underwater, right? So in our upcoming series, primarily aimed at new divers, but if we can teach some old divers new tricks, we're happy to do it. We're going to look at those basic principles of weighting, trim, buoyancy, propulsion, breathing, and breath control. But we're also going to take those basic principles and use them in a real-world way during a dive. From your 5-point sorted descent and descending techniques until you reach the depth that you actually want to dive at, and the techniques that you're going to use to maintain yourself at that depth with good diving form, good propulsion, good breathing control, all the way to your 5-point ascent and our ascending techniques, our safety stop, and taking us all the way safely back to the surface, using all of those 5 basic principles to get us through the entire dive. So as you can see, we have a lot to get to and a lot to cover. So first up, we're going to take a look at how to perfect your weighting for each dive scenario. Click the link down below me to go to the next video.